This week on the show, we find out how you can get your show recognized by the International Academy of Web Television. Goldie launches her new web series, and Lady Gaga's bodyguard KO's an eager fan. All that and more on Behind the Video number 17. This episode of Behind the Video is brought to you by the Independent Media Network. The Independent Media Network helps journalists and content creators create their own jobs by building sustainable online businesses. If you're an unemployed or underemployed journalist or content creator, visit imnct.com for more information. Hey everybody, we are back with episode number 17 of Behind the Video. We can drive now, which is wonderful. If we were counting days and not years, or years and not days. But we are back once more here, and we've got some great stuff to talk about here. And we have two of our co-hosts are doing some really cool stuff. So let me bring it over to Tim Street first to talk to us about an awards ceremony or an awards event, not a ceremony, an event and a ceremony, I guess, coming up to honor and recognize some of the people doing some really cool independent video work. So why don't you take it away, Tim?
Sure. We have the International Academy of Web Television Awards taking place in Las Vegas during the CES conference, and Christopher Wells Graham has joined us. He's going to be talking about that in a few minutes. Goldie, what's new with you?
Well, I just released Cost of Capital, which is this great dramatic web series. We released our trailer. Very excited. We'll talk a little bit later about it in the show. I'm hoping my co-producer will join me. We had over 4K views in 24 hours, so we're hoping that the momentum keeps going for our show, and we're very excited and proud about it.
That is excellent. And we're really excited for you too, and what you're doing is exactly what we cover on the show. So it's very it's going to be a good case study for our viewers as we go, and hopefully I'm sure it will be a case study in success as it goes. So
hopefully.
Well, let's bring in Christopher Wells Graham to the discussion here. And Christopher is, I believe, you're the organizer of the awards coming up, right? So you want to give us a little bit of a
I wish I was, but unfortunately I am not going to take credit for that. That's a lovely woman by the name of Amber J. Lawson who runs that particular side of our event, and you can check out an interview with her on this week's episode of Frame Rate, which you can find on twit.tv/framerate, where she goes into depth about the International Academy of Web Television as well. But I am part of the planning committee that will be preparing the awards that are going to be happening on January 8th of 2013 in Las Vegas, Nevada, which is going to be a really fun event, and it'll be happening during CES, as Tim Street mentioned earlier.
Hey, Chris, I'm curious, what are the different, there's 30-some different categories. What are some of the different categories that people can enter their web series into, and then how long do they have to enter?
Well, they have from now until September 17th, and there are literally 34 categories, which you can pretty much find a category for anything that your web series falls into. We've got your standard ones like Best Comedy Web Series, Best Drama, Best Hosted. So, for example, you could, pop in behind the video here. And then there are several new categories this year, including Best Ensemble, and then with the growth of YouTube channels, they've also added a category for Best Channel this year. So there is pretty much a category for anything that you would be looking for.
Now, I'm on the board of directors for the IAWTV, but we've got you on here, so I want to ask you a few questions. Why would people want to get involved with the International Academy of Web Television, and why would they want to enter this award show?
Well, I mean, I think one thing, and one of the reasons why I've gotten involved with the International Academy of Web Television is as a content producer. I think organizations like the IAWTV add legitimacy to the industry as a whole. The great thing about the IAWTV Awards is that it is an award show that is voted on strictly by the members of the IAWTV. So it's 100% a peer group. We haven't gone out and selected individuals that, might be able to, say one thing saying. It's not a a press organization or something like that's going in there. It's strictly a peer vote. So I think that's one of the more positive things with it. Also, one of the great opportunities with joining the IAWTV and participating in an award show like this is you get to meet people like like Tim Street and and other individuals that are very busy and active in the industry. And it is, like I said, it's such a fast-growing, emerging market that it's a great way of getting into it on the ground floor and then going from there.
Yeah, that's really it. I would say that another thing that's really, really interesting about the IAWTV is that it's a very welcome and open organization. And if you are a content creator and you get involved with the IAWTV, you'll feel like you belong. I mean,
oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I've been a member of several industry groups, and at times, yeah, you do feel you're welcome, but they're much bigger. They're much harder to get into. And here you go to the award show. Let's just use the award show as an example. As a member, you go to the award show in Las Vegas, and you can run into Felicia Day. You can run into the people that are really Benny and Benny Fine and the other people that are actually doing a lot in the industry right now and are actually the movers and shakers. So it's a great way of getting your name out there and getting to network and actually being able to go and talk to the people you might want to talk to.
Very cool. Lon?
And well, we have a chat room question, and that is some of the services or some of the exchange that might happen within the organization. Is there tech advice that people can get from each other? Is there a way for people to network and maybe help each other grow their audiences?
Sure. One of the things that we have is a very active Facebook group. So if you're a member, you get access to that Facebook group, and it's a great place where people post new things that they see happening in the web series space, but they also ask questions about equipment. I know there have been things about different cameras. Just recently, one of the members did a post about a new site that he created for finding locations at reasonable prices, which for a web series creator, that's a pretty valuable website.
That is a really hard thing to sometimes find a location that is relatively inexpensive, but it'll still actually do the job and look really good.
And budgeting is always key.
So yeah, I mean, I hope that answers the question. There's also different peer groups that go on. We have a producers group where we help producers put together a pitch. So they work on their pitch, and they'll do a pitch in front of a group of peers, and then we give them feedback on their idea. We give them feedback on their actual pitch and try to help them and coach them to get better at really selling the idea of their show. And then there's also a writers group that is moderated by award-winning writer Bernie Sue, and it's great. You bring in a script for a web series, 10 pages or less, and then there are actors in the room that you can immediately cast to your web series, and they get up in front of the group, read your script, and then everyone gives notes on the script. They don't give notes on the actors, but on the script.
And Tim, I'd like to add something too to that. It's not just a Los Angeles group as well. We have members in, we're the International Academy of Web Television, so we have members pretty much all throughout the country. And that writers group that Bernie does here in Los Angeles, a group of individuals, and I can't think of who it is who runs it, but I've seen it several times on the Facebook group, runs a similar one in New York City as well. So there's ample there's ample opportunities for you to get involved, even if you're not in Los Angeles. It's one of the reasons why we do the award show in Las Vegas, so that we can do it in a nice central location. There's a lot of hubbub going on in Las Vegas, obviously, with CES at that point in time. So it's a really great opportunity for you, no matter where you are, to come on in.
And is there a cost to join, or is it something that people...
There is a cost to join the IAWTV. I might as well go through that. I can't think of the number off the top of my head.
It's $90.
It's $90.
Mm-hmm. Yep, IAWTV.org.
IAWTV.org. But for the actual award show itself, there is a submission fee as well. It is $90 for non-members and $95 for non-members and $45 for members. So, and one of the advantages too is if you join the IAWTV, you get the opportunity to not only submit your show, but you would get the opportunity to, you know, vote for it during the process where we're whittling it down to the actual nominees, and then after the nominees, you get an opportunity to vote on the actual show itself, and it's a really fantastic, fun process. I got to see a lot of fantastic work. Some of it that I was really sad didn't quite make it past that, but you know, you get out there and you get your name known, and you get, you know, an opportunity to get on the ground floor that even if you're not, you know, one of the big players in the industry, you can definitely get your content seen by a lot of people. So it's a great opportunity, and it's a really good organization, and one that I hope that some of your...
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Sorry to interrupt. I was curious
no, that's fine. I can do it.
How many shows were submitted in general last year?
I don't remember the total amount of shows that were you know, taken care of last year. David Nett would probably be the best to ask about that. He's our HTML guru who keeps track of those type of things. But I'll tell you this right now, the best thing you can do for yourself is get yourself in as early as you can. You have until September 17th for submissions. So go ahead and do it, and then, you know, do the other tricks of the trade that other award shows do. Make sure to present that you want to be considered, and try to do as much publicity on your end as well. I mean, there's a reason why when you page through Variety come about a month and a half from now, you're going to start seeing you know, full page ads from Universal saying Battleship for your consideration for Best Picture, Best Actor, Best, you know, and there's a reason why you see that.
Where can I vote for Battleship? I want to.
Yeah, where can I vote for Battleship? Give me
sunk my Battleship.
Yeah, yes. So that's why you see that type of stuff. So from a person whose day job is I'm working on an MBA and I'm understanding, you know, knowing a lot about marketing and business side of it, I think a lot of times us creatives don't want to focus on that, but you know, once you submit, get the word out that you've submitted for your consideration. Goldie Chan's, you know, awesome web video series, Best Ever Created, and get the word out there, because you never know.
That's a great title, by the way, Christopher. I'm going to make my next web series called that. Goldie's
Absolutely. Well, this is why
best title ever.
Write that one down.
I'm writing it. I'm just look at me typing.
Look at you typing. You're like, excuse me, guys.
That's a new awards category, the best ever created. That's what it is.
Yeah, best ever created. Right. The best thing in the world positive. But yeah, so don't feel hesitant. There are certain rules, and you're going to be able to see all of that information at IAWTVawards.com, or .org, I'm sorry. I always get the .org and .com screwed up, but IAWTVawards.org, and you can find out all the submission rules to put your show in there, and go ahead and do it. I mean, it's a good opportunity, if anything, to get awareness to people that are movers and shakers in the industry. And it's not just content creators, it's people at pretty much all of the major agencies in town, and the studios, the various interactive studios. So it's a really good and very broad organization to be a member of, and a lot of fun in the respect that we're still a relatively young organization. We were only formed in 2009, so we have, you know, we're still in that kind of infant stage, and we're learning to crawl, and we're going from there. And I think our first time walking was the award show last year, and we're going to be running this year for the second event.
Well, that's terrific, and I think it's a good investment right now, especially because this whole industry is in its infancy. You know, not just your organization, across the board. So, you know,
oh yeah, and let me tell you what the submission fee gets you as well. On both categories, whether you're a member or you're a non-member, it allows you to submit your show. Like, let's say we're going to submit Beyond the Video, and or behind the video. Why do I keep calling it beyond the video? I have
beyond,
no idea.
behind. It's all right. You can go behind.
Behind.
Right.
So you're going to submit behind the video. Okay, so you submit behind the video for best news show, and then you submit Lon for best host, and Tim for best host, and Goldie for best host. And you can then have two more categories. That would be four. You'd have one more that you could submit into, like, let's say, a technical category. So you're able to go and do that. So if you have an ensemble cast and you want to submit for best comedy, you have the opportunity to submit for best comedy, and then your actor, your lead actress and actor there, and ensemble. There's just multiple categories you can submit from that one submission.
That's great. Well, we will definitely keep an eye on that and look forward to hearing a report as we go. And we hope you'll stick around for the rest of the show because we've got
I would sure like to. I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller.
Excellent.
So
welcome on board.
It's a lot of fun to be here.
Good. And we do want to give Goldie a chance to kind of talk about what the last week has been, because last week we were talking about the fact that her trailer was going to launch, and now it has. You had some good viewership, Goldie. And what's the last couple months been like producing this show, and what maybe some things that you've gleaned along that process?
You know, I think a lot of us on the show right now are active content creators, so we've all basically made things from scratch, so to speak. And so as a producer, it's no less difficult to just kind of pull all the things together. And for Cost of Capital, it's been so interesting. The last couple of months have been a lot of just kind of getting the nitty-gritties together and getting everything ready, and I am super crazy. So the thing I learned from my last web series is finish a whole season first before going live, and that's just a personal preference for me, and which I forced, of course, upon my wonderfully generous team.
So do you rule with an iron fist on set?
Of course I do. Of course I do. But we were really excited because we had worked really hard on this trailer, and we're getting amazing feedback. So Cost of Capital is a show about the secret lives of, billionaire investment bankers, really putting the human side actually on it. And it follows a private equity deal from start to finish and all of the things that kind of go into it. So it's educational as well, which is so interesting. We actually got approached by a school in Pakistan where they do management consulting, and they asked if they could put our show into their curriculum, and we said yes, of course. We're releasing it on YouTube free, so watch it and use it. We love to see those papers because these students are gonna have to write papers on the show, and I just find that super exciting. And we're getting fans from actually all over the world already who are just like, I'm in Australia and I'm trying to get my local radio station to cover you guys.
Oh, cool. So the fans are helping to project it. Now, one thing we talked about before the show was that in your casting decisions, you approach casting differently than some web series producers do, which is
people. But I have just a deep affection for really good actors.
that helps a lot. And when will the show launch itself officially?
We're officially launching in September, and I don't want to give a hard date for it yet. Right. But we're launching in September, of course, in time to submit for IAWTV's beautiful awards. And we're hoping that people will like the show, and if we're very lucky, we will maybe win an award or two. So that's the best case scenario.
We'll keep our fingers crossed for your consideration. So, Goldie, we'll be talking about this a lot, I am sure, as this develops, because I think our viewers would really benefit from hearing about that process from start to finish. And so shooting is done, post-production and promotion have begun, and I think that's going to be a lot of work, right?
Yeah, and I think one of the things we're doing is we're actually doing, hilariously, the podcast circuit. So outside of this one, we'll be joining a couple other people who will be kind of coming and talking with us about the show, and we're hopefully doing a couple interviews. And like I said, there's international fans who are they're actually actively trying to petition to get us on various shows to talk about our show before it even goes live, which is, I think, really beautiful. We actually got 4,000 views in a little over 24 hours on our trailer alone, and that was really, I would love to say we had a giant marketing budget and we just threw money in the air, and that's why we had so many views. But really, it was all viral. It's a lot of the fans, of course, we send out to all of our friends, but then it just kind of took a life of its own. So we're excited to see what will end up happening with this show. It's kind of a true testament to what you can do with almost no marketing budget.
Right. Well, we will watch with interest as time goes on here. So we'll see how things come together. It looks like my video might be frozen, but we'll keep going if you can hear me. And there we go. I'm back. So let's move on, though, because the competition, the big broadcasters, still exist. And we're going to take a look now at the top broadcast shows of the week. Number 5, by the way, the Olympics are done, so no more Olympics. So we've got more to talk about now. America's Got Talent, number 5. The Big Bang Theory rerun, number 4. A 60 Minutes rerun, number 3. America's Got Talent, number 2, and NBC leads again with another sports program, the NFL preseason. So football obviously is kicking off very soon, and that will continue.
And we're getting into that interesting time of year as the football season comes in. I think we're going to see Sunday Night Football a lot in the top 5. I mean, you look at the numbers that they're able to do with Sunday Night Football, and then also on ESPN for Monday Night Football. It's staggering. So I think you're going to be seeing a lot of NBC in the next 6 months at least for football. At least I can't say anything about the rest of their fall season.
And I got that "Are You Ready for Some Football" song in my head. So I just wish Connecticut had a football team, but we don't have enough people for that. So
well, you guys can root for the Patriots. I mean, you're in one of those great places. You can root for the Patriots. You can root for the Giants, for the Jets. Right. You don't have to quite choose based on geographic location. Well,
I am actually in the demarcation zone between, the neutral zone between Red Sox, Yankees, and Giants, Jets, and the Patriots. So it's for people running for political office down here, it's very difficult because you never know where someone's going to be on.
Yeah, because those are some Romeo and Juliet style feuds between those fans.
Oh, it's personal. It's personal for sure. So my parents are from Brooklyn, so I have a genetic tie to the New York teams, but
you can just say you're a Dodger fan.
Exactly. On cable this week, NASCAR, the Sprint Cup came in at number 5. Mostly sports. Well, actually not mostly sports, but Dallas and Oakland on ESPN. Rizzoli and Isles. You know who Goldie's rooting for. There's no demarcation zone there. Rizzoli and Isles on TNT was number 3. Major Crimes on TNT, number 2. And The Closer on TNT, number 1. So the scripted shows on TNT are still dominating. Tim, are you watching any TNT?
Whenever there's a good drama that I happen to stumble across, it usually seems to be on TNT. It was amazing to see how they just dominated this week with the dramas.
It's pretty remarkable. So we'll see where that one continues to lead, and they are doing quite well. In fact, we don't see USA on the top 5 at all this week, and they have a lot of scripted shows too. One show that's scripted and will be departing this season is The Office, a cult hit, and I think that might disappoint some folks, but maybe they're going to quit while they're ahead. And they say, according to TVLine.com, that all of fans' questions will be answered. And that was said about Lost too, and it really didn't happen that way.
Well, they answered it. They're dead, wasn't it, or something like that? I don't know.
Who knows?
Yeah, The Office to me is a lot like Lost. It's one of those shows that I know a lot of people have liked. I've just never quite gotten it myself.
It's a dream. It's a dream. That's why you don't get it. That's what you're going to find out. It's just a dream.
All a dream. That's another Hollywood.
That's a sad dream that you're working in an office day to day at a paper.
Okay, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, with a documentary film crew that doesn't seem to ever want to complete their film. So it's
right.
I'm just thinking about those hours of footage you have to comb through. That sounds like a nightmare.
Oh man, put that thing into a 90-minute documentary.
That's the sequel, right? Is the documentary crew who has to edit all the crap.
Yeah, right. That's the nightmare they're going.
That'll be the Archie's place of The Office.
So, oh, great, guys. Okay, we're editing.
Now, here's an interesting thing. Talking about it was more of a generational issue more than anything, but Jimmy Kimmel Live is moving to the 11:35 time slot on ABC. And that replaces, it looks like, Nightline, because that's been there forever, right?
Yeah, Nightline's going to switch and go later, and Jimmy Kimmel's going to go head-to-head with Letterman and with Leno. And this is, creating a lot of big wars going on. And at the same time that this happened, Jay Leno laid off 20 staffers.
Right,
so,
and took a pay cut to prevent more from getting laid off, right?
Yeah, there's a lot going on right now. And, it would be interesting if we could open up the history books and take a look at radio in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s and see how that transition from radio being the most popular media to television happened, because I think that's what we're seeing happen now, and there's going to be a lot of shifting and moving, and we may see television dramas go away. We might see the weatherman go away, because you don't really need to tune into the 11 o'clock news to see the weatherman when you can check on your iPhone.
And Tim, you brought up an interesting point too. A family member of mine a few years ago called network TV, and this was 5 years ago. He was calling network television kind of like the dying days of vaudeville, where they were doing pretty much anything they could to bring in viewers. And this move of Jimmy Kimmel from midnight to 11:30 is pretty much that same thing. I mean, I know in some of the early press releases that I read about the switch, they were talking about how, well, Nightline skews to such an older audience. But the strange thing is Nightline typically is the #1 show, beating Leno and Letterman as well. So it's an interesting move to put them in this time slot, because Nightline for years has been such a moneymaker for them, but they're saying that it targets too young or too old of an audience, and they want to get the kids, and you all want the kids to be in there if they're going to have a survival of network television.
And on late night, of course, Jay Leno and David Letterman, they've been on late night for as long as I can remember. I mean, Jay Leno used to fill in for Johnny Carson when he was on vacation or whatever. So there hasn't been a lot of churn. They tried with Conan and cut him loose too quickly, in my opinion. But
well, and the interesting thing with David Letterman this year, I think it's either this season or next season, he actually passes Johnny Carson as being the longest-running late-night host if you combined the old late night show and the late show at CBS. Right. So yeah, these guys have been on for a very, very long time, and it's interesting to see that kind of shift. Conan's been on TBS now for about 2 years. I don't know how well the show does over there. It's very good, but I don't know if that's getting the audience that they would want, and it'll be interesting to see if Jimmy, who has been at that show for a very long time, I mean, he's been on ABC for 10 years, to see if he's going to be able to bring that audience.
He might go into the movie business next.
Absolutely.
My producer actually just joined the show, Allison Vanore, which I think a couple of us know her.
Hi, Allison.
Hey, Allison.
Congratulations on the show, Allison. You have to unmute your mic for us, though, because when we bring people in, they are muted, just to prevent me having to hit the cutoff button.
Is that working now?
Yeah, you're all set. Are you
no F-bombs, okay?
No F-bombs, right.
Well, okay.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. This is the most people we've had actively talking on a show so far.
I know, and we have, and actually we will have a time for some callers in a little while also, and if you do want to join us and troll, hopefully not, or just provide something of interest to the rest of the chat, you can join us at bit.ly/BTV17chat. I'm sorry, join. BTV17 join, and you will also join our conversation. And Goldie will tweet this, has already tweeted it out, so if you're following her on Twitter, or any of us on Twitter, you can get the link as well. Let's move on to some...
And if you're listening at another time, be sure to check in Thursday mornings, 11:30 Eastern, 8:30 Pacific.
And we record the show live, and you can participate in the show. And you can call right in. We're really open, because it's the way to do it. Let's move on to the box office, though. We have some new flicks working their way in. The Sparkle, which I think was introduced last week, had a $11.6 million open. The Campaign, which Goldie was not a fan of, nevertheless has brought in $50 million. I've heard mixed reviews from friends. Some liked it, some didn't. But nevertheless, it's holding strong in the top 5. Paranorman is, I think it's a kid's movie at $14.1 million. That was
stop motion. Go support.
Oh. So there's some real labor that went behind that. And The Bourne Legacy is at number 2 with $69.6 million, $17 million this week. And I believe I think it was number 1 last week. It was knocked off by the aging action stars in The Expendables 2. Which had a $28.6 million open, so not bad for the late summer. There are some movies coming up, and one in particular I felt was worthy of discussion because it had a lot of movement on IMDb. And for those of you that go to IMDb on a regular basis, if you look at the opening this week column, there's little check marks or arrows up and down that give you an idea of what kind of interest there is based on traffic. And one movie that's been really growing in its interest level is something called a film called Sleepwalk With Me. It was an independent movie, and that one is produced by the This American Life folks, Ira Glass. It's always the top podcast out there, but it's also a public radio show that's distributed across the country. Awesome show if you haven't listened to it. But they've been really pushing this movie to get it into some of the independent art house kind of theaters. And they even got, and Goldie would love to hear this, Joss Whedon to make a YouTube video with some reverse psychology. You know, he wanted people not to boycott the film so that the Avengers doesn't get knocked off its perch later on. So I thought that was kind of an interesting approach to promoting a movie to get it into theaters. So what's interesting here, and maybe we can get some thoughts on this, is that they're going the old route, get it into the movie theater, whereas maybe it's okay to try to get it on YouTube now or on blip.tv, even something that long form. We're starting to get ways to watch this stuff on our televisions, right? Let me throw it out there to anyone who wants to take this topic here and run with it.
It is interesting to see what is happening in this space. I mean, Freddie Wong did Video Game High School, which is a feature-length film chopped up into different episodes on a web series, and rather than stick it on YouTube, he's put it on his own site. With his partners, and so they're looking at a new way of monetizing this, and it'll be interesting to see what else they do with this property that they've created through a Kickstarter campaign is where it came from, and then they've made it and put it out as well.
So we'll see. So Goldie, you never thought about putting your show onto a movie theater, right?
You know what's funny is that we're getting, and Allison can attest to this certainly, we're getting a lot of requests saying, you know, is this going to be a movie? We'd love this to be a movie instead of a web show. And so it's funny, I work primarily in web series, but Allison actually does a variety of formats, and she can kind of take it away from there.
Yeah, so Allison, let's talk about this. Why not take this film and with all the audience that they have on This American Life, including people that are consuming this stuff digitally from them already, why not push this out on a medium that they can get a wider audience from, as opposed to trying to get it in movie theaters?
Well, I think that's the thing that we all kind of mull over, and we're trying to figure out what's the best medium for the show that we're putting out there, or the story we're putting out there. And you know, there's definitely the traditional way of putting something together in a feature-length movie and selling it and trying to get theatrical, or selling it on a DVD, television, video on demand, and I've done that with a lot of features, and I know that there is a way to make money doing that, and it's easier, you know,
right,
because there's an established
distribution medium,
way
right?
to do that. Yeah, exactly. So I feel like that's obviously an option, but Goldie and I are very interested in television. I know our creators interested in television, and this was something that we had an audience online that we wanted to see if we could tap into. And so because we already have people there on our creator site, this is something we wanted to give to them.
Great. Well, that's a good explanation. So we'll see. And we do have some sad news out of Hollywood this week. Tony Scott, who was the director of many films of note, including Top Gun, one of my favorites of all time, just because I like the airplanes. But it's a cool movie. It's totally improbable, but nevertheless a cool movie. But he passed away by suicide. And you know, here was something interesting. iTunes, right, and they do this a lot when somebody dies. But they immediately market the deceased's content, and they had a promotion up 48 hours after Tony Scott's death. Tim, you know, would you do this?
Well, you know, people are interested when a celebrity passes away in taking a look at their works and discovering what else it is. Oh, they did Top Gun. I didn't realize they also did Days of Thunder, that type of thing. So, you know, I think that's a pretty natural type thing to do in marketing, because you're feeding what the audience wants. I remember as a kid when Elvis passed away, everybody was going to the record store and buying albums.
Right. No, that's exactly it. It drives sales. And Michael Jackson's death was a great example of a sudden resurgence in interest in his music because he was in the news. Let's move on to online here because there's some movement happening on Hulu, and I guess some stuff leaked out of Hulu about CEO transitioning, and Hulu it's kind of this weird dichotomy because it was created by traditional broadcasters as a way to get content online and monetize it, but now it might be cannibalizing some of its content through the medium that they wish to really promote it through, which is the broadcast side. So maybe we'll throw this one over to Christopher to start. Have you heard about this thing, and what do you think it's going to mean for people who are beginning to enjoy Hulu more than their local affiliate?
I think when Hulu was first established, I think a lot of these big media companies looked at this as a hobby. They were looking at YouTube as such a competitor, and they wanted to try to squash it. So now that Hulu is actually becoming a legitimate competitor to them, they're looking at now as a true threat. I mean, you look at how Netflix takes up 25% of all bandwidth in the primetime evening hours, and obviously that's taking away viewership from America's Gonna Lose Weight on a Treadmill and all the other great shows that they produce. So now they're starting to see it as a legitimate threat, and with all these things, they like to play together nicely at first, but over time it deteriorates away. And I could see maybe potentially some of these companies like Disney and Fox and these other ones going and saying, well, come and play in our walled garden instead of playing in Hulu, and going from there. But it's going to be a really interesting thing to see where the shakedown comes out.
Allison, do you have content on Hulu right now? Oh, well, I think we lost our audio real quick there. Let me let's see if it comes back. We lost Allison. Allison, you still there?
No, sorry about that.
That's okay.
No, I don't have content on Hulu.
And why is that? Is it hard to get content on Hulu?
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Let me pass that over to Tim, just maybe get his take on this. Independents are not flocking to Hulu, right?
Well, there are independents. I mean, if you look at Goodnight Burbank is on Hulu. The Guild is on Hulu. There are several different pioneers in our space that have made it to Hulu. But I do see Hulu. I think one of the partners is probably going to buy out the other partners because it's too valuable of a property just to shut it down or to sell it off to somebody else that will be a competitor of yours. So I wouldn't be surprised if the URL changes to hulu.go.com or hulu.disney.go.com.
Right, it becomes ingested into some other entity and loses its original thing there.
I wanted to bring up something that we actually just got from Twitter, which was that Hulu announced that they're focusing on content discovery, which we actually talked about in our last podcast. So I'm curious if they're doing a little bit of what Yahoo is doing with what Marissa Meyer is doing, where they're copying a little bit.
and they've delved a little bit this last year into original content. I watched over the weekend Battleground. I finally had an afternoon to sit down and I watched the entire original web series Battleground, and it's very good. I, as a member of the IAWTV, would hope that the producers of that would submit it into our awards for consideration, because I think that what they're doing is really remarkable. And I could see that being a place that they go into, as well as, like, let's say, they've already had disputes with Comedy Central and some other entities about getting their programming on there quickly. Obviously, the consumer base out there is saying to these media companies that we want it now. I know there's a lot of controversy over shows like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia not getting on there as quickly as they've been broadcasted. So I could see Hulu taking a play, and like Tim said, the brand is very valuable at this point in time, and taking a play and starting to go into being more of a primary content creator instead of being just a facilitator to get to see last night's Daily Show.
And I think it's good for all of us to have these large companies competing over promoting independent content, which would be an awesome thing to see there. So, so we've got some stuff on YouTube this week that has been topping the charts, and this is what fascinated me. I checked the top videos of the week this morning, and the top video is not, some mindless droning on. It's actually this guy Vsauce, who, or I guess he calls himself Sauce, who actually did a physics lesson of about 8 minutes in length that got 4.6 million views, hypothesizing as to whether or not if everyone jumped up and down at the same time, would the Earth's rotation react to that? Tim, have you thought about jumping up and down to change the Earth's rotation?
Yes, I have. I thought about that a lot as I watched the bodyguard of Lady Gaga take out a fan, which was another one of the popular videos this week that I was just like, whoa, this guy comes running up to Lady Gaga to get her autograph, and this big bodyguard just takes him out, throws him like up against a revolving door. It was like, oh,
yeah, it was pretty brutal. I was
like, ouch.
Yeah, it was funny. It was the bodyguard subdues him and then clocks him at the afterwards. So I guess, and she was a little taken aback by it. And one thing you have to give Lady Gaga credit for is that she never goes incognito, right? She's always
yeah. I think she said she doesn't even go like to the grocery store in the middle of the night in her pajamas. She always has something dazzling on.
Right. You got to give her credit for keeping that brand going. So, but we are quickly running out of time. But I did want to bring in our caller, and Brian Parker, who's been with us before, is here, and he's in his troll mode because he's got his sunglasses on inside. He's so cool. So Brian, what's on your mind today?
Not much. Great stuff. Very interesting to hear about the association there for these content creators. I was really kind of digging that. But now, so there's a fee to submit a video and a fee to just join the association. Is that right?
Yeah, basically you can join this, and you can do that whether you have a web series or not. Even if you're just a fan of web series, you can join by going to IAWTV Awards or IAWTV.org, and then the award show itself, it is a fee for that. And then mainly for anybody who's concerned about the fee cost, the fee basically goes to cover the cost of the trophy. So it's just covering the administration and those type of things, and you get a really nice, pretty gold statue, which is about 18 inches high.
And who wouldn't want to have a nice statue like that?
Well,
more stuff for the man cave.
You get a little bit more than that. You get
I know. I was generalizing.
And a recognition by your peers, right, Allison?
Yes.
Well, that is a great thing to have. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us. We had a lot to talk about today, and we always like to keep these broadcasts down to about the size of a California commute. My commute's about 5 minutes, so no podcast could ever fit into that thing. But we do thank everyone for coming on, including Allison, Brian, Christopher, Goldie as usual, me. I'll thank myself and Tim. So let's go through the breakdown here. Allison, how can people find you online and what you're working on? Oh, did we lose Allison again? Oh, we're having trouble reaching Allison. But, Goldie, how can people find Allison and you?
Well, people can find Allison on Twitter at Alliecine, ALLIECINE. And she is currently working on a couple projects I can tell you about. One is obviously Cost of Capital with me. The other one is Love in the Time of Monsters. I think those are the two ones that she's working on mostly right now. And I will pass it off to Brian.
Brian, how can people find you?
Yeah, check us out at onthehorn.com, Hartford Online Radio Network. That'd be great.
He's got the best chairs in the business. Christopher, where can people find you?
You can find me on the Twitter machine at CWGRAHAM.
You can find me at LONSEIDMAN.com. I've got a Google Plus thing now that links to that. And Tim, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at OneTimStreet. And if you have an iPad, check out my book. There's a free download. It's called Vids, and you can find it on the iBook store.
Excellent. And that will do it for this episode of Behind the Video. We are going to work on making it easier for you to interact with us. So we have about 27 chat rooms right now. We're going to try to reduce that number to 5. And we'll get everything functional for you in the very near future. But want to thank everyone for joining us. And we'll be back next week. So this episode is a wrap. Great show, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, everyone.
I got to run, too.
Yeah.
Duty calls. Stories for this episode were compiled by producer Jason Perrier. Follow him on Twitter at JASONPERRIER. Perrier. Behind the Video is a production of Ape Digital Incorporated and the Independent Media Network, LLC. All rights reserved.